one of our Patreon, shout out to our Patreon partner, Jad, he said, in light of all the false narratives that spread over the week, can you do a video on the importance of not sharing in misinformation and waiting for facts on viral stories, especially as a follower of Jesus? Yeah. So a ton of stuff coming out this week, a ton of angles, each side trying to cover themselves up. On the left, you saw everyone saying, oh, this guy was a MAGA person, white boy, did this, and he was a right winger, blah 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 blah. You saw that. From the left about the right, on the right about the left, it was like this person's a transformer, and so some of us could kind of sense the smell test in the situation, and we knew something was up. We knew, especially with the timing of the question that was being asked, we knew something was up. And so it didn't take long to get past the smell test, especially like our brains see patterns. Sometimes those patterns are inaccurate, but a lot of times those patterns are accurate. So when you see the past few situations, and we just zoom in on the past several years with regards to political violence, you primarily see it against the right. Now, that doesn't mean there's not situations like the Minnesota senators that appear to have been a byproduct of someone that was on the terrorist pro-life side, right? That stuff does happen. But lately, it's been more so folks from the radical left against the right. Most obviously, the assassination of Donald Trump, the past couple school shootings, so on and so forth, right? And so now, as the details come out, you start discovering, oh, this dude was, in the furry community, he was dating someone that was in the furry community, he was dating someone that was a transformer, and I transformer, I'm just speaking in code, I'm not trying to be demeaning to anyone who's dealing with gender dysphoria or anything like that. And so we've seen both sides go to their extreme, and I think this is why I think this happens. Like why do both sides go to a specific extreme to try to cover it up? I mean, I saw one creator that flat out, and maybe I'll pull it up because it really frustrated me. I saw one creator that I kind of, I don't know if I checked, but I definitely was like, hey, are you going to apologize for this when it doesn't turn out the way you see? Let me see if I could react it to you guys. This one right here.
The media has failed us in a lot of ways, and mainstream sources like the Wall Street Journal, The Guardian, and now Fox News and the New York Post misleading and allowing conspiracy theories to fuel fires online. We saw
So to fuel fires online. So what is he saying? He's really saying that there are some stuff that came out from the right that was wrong, the bullet casings or whatever. But listen to what he says here in this point he makes here.
The Wall Street Journal improperly published and now retract a story that said that the shell casings of the man suspected to be the shooter of Charlie Kirk contained gender ideology on it. That's not true. Then we saw The Guardian publish a story saying that the man suspected of killing Charlie Kirk was a leftist according to high school classmates. That's not true.
Okay, so that was proven to be true, that he was radicalized by the left. Now, maybe the quote from the classmates wasn't true. And I'm going to tell you guys why I think this happens in a second, right? So he's saying that's not true. Well, no, it is true. It's just it wasn't by classmates. It was by his family members who said that he would have conversations and rage against how he wanted, Charlie Kirk was being hateful. So that was true, right?
And has since been retracted. And now Fox News and the New York Post are reporting that the roommate was allegedly trained. And there's very little corroborating evidence to support Fox News' reporting that it's released to the public. And even if there is corroborating evidence, who cares? A roommate is not.
Who cares? Even if there is corroborating evidence, who cares? Now, this is what I left in a comment, and I got torched in this comment section. He said, I said, if it is confirmed that he was in a trans relationship, will you retract and apologize? You think this person retracted and apologized? That if there's a through line between, hey, there is a connection here with the radicalization happening, you think this person will? Of course, they won't apologize because again, there's a bias, a cognitive bias that is connected here, and I'm going to get to it in a second. And I said, here's some other facts about this, right? Cox said that a family member of Robinson had told investigators that at a recent family dinner, Robinson had mentioned Kirk's upcoming event at Utah Valley University, and they talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints he had. The family member also stated that he was full of hate, that Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. This is how you know this didn't come from the Groper types and the Nick Fuentes types, which I, by the way, find repulsive, that whole community. The woke right is what we call them, and I can unpack that if you want me to. If it was from the woke right, the woke right doesn't think that Charlie Kirk's too hateful. They think he's not hateful enough. Okay, so Of course, this person's not going to apologize. Now, why is this happening? Why do people jump to conclusions? Why do people jump to conclusions? Why does the media jump to conclusions? Why is there this need to jump to conclusions? Well, it's actually a cognitive form of manipulation, in my point. Conclusions, jumping to conclusions is leads to something called anchoring bias. Okay, this leads to something called anchoring bias. Now, this is if you're familiar with psychology, maybe you have heard this, right? So this is what anchoring bias is. And it goes both ways, by the way. This isn't a left or a right thing, right? But anchoring bias, or the anchoring effect, is a cognitive bias when an individual relies too heavily on the first piece of information, the anchor, when making decisions. This initial data point, which is often irrelevant or arbitrary, disproportionately influences subsequent judgments and estimates. The bias was famously demonstrated in one experiment. They found that people who were first given a random high number reference point for a question. So anyway, this is what happens. So what happens is your brain tends to anchor the first information it receives, and in that, it removes any additional information that comes in line. So there's people right now that think that this was a MAGA conservative that took out Charlie Kirk. One of your own white boys did it. He was a MAGA conservative. It's like he was a conservative Mormon kid at 18, went off to college and got radicalized. That's what happened, right? Got into a furry trans relationship. That's what happened. But anchoring biases, and so when people are coming out and they're like, that's been debunked, and then it's like, well, actually, no. The FBI came out and said this, that there was a relationship of trans. And now that more is coming out, it looks even more radicalization has happened. And again, this person, it broke my heart when I saw that the dad was the one who called him in, who turned him in, and a pastor stepped in. And you see that this dude, and you're like, man, this is sad. Like, imagine having to be the father towards a person that does something like this. This is tragic all around, and it shows how someone can be radicalized when they go into the institutions, which, by the way, I think this is why we need to continue pressing into the institutions. We need to press into these conversations and not flee from them, right? You go off to college, you send your kids off to college, you send your kids off to public school, and they come back leftist radicals. It's only been accelerated with the recent anchoring of this stuff in college universities. So jumping to conclusions is not good. Jumping to conclusions and assuming that something is true is not good. At the same time, facts are facts. And so if this dude by all measurable accounts, is in a trans-furry relationship, that's an important distinction. How does someone go from being a good Mormon kid, quote unquote, who was radicalized in a trans-furry relationship in a matter of a couple of years? How does that happen? Because there's a deeper ideology. There's a deeper ideology that is words are violence, silence is violence, not absolutely affirming everything about your identity and your lived experience is violence. And so because there's violence, then you can respond with real violence. This is awful. This is awful. This is awful. And by the way, I'm not saying this doesn't happen on the right. It happens on the right. It happened on January 6th when you kept telling people that the republic is going to implode and that this is the end of America as we know it. Well, then it would be logical to then go and storm the Capitol. This happens all the time, right? If you tell somebody this is an existential threat, this is an existential threat. What do you think people are going to do? What do you think people are going to do? And by people, I mean specifically people that already are more susceptible to be mentally ill. What do you think they're going to do? People who are ostracized might be on a spectrum, so on and so forth, right? This is the logical reaction to this sort of stuff, whether it's from the right or from the left. So I personally don't like calling any specific group Nazis and Hitler and all this sort of stuff. Like, I think there's definitely like white, like Nick Fuentes to me is a white supremacist. He literally believes that white genetics are superior. Address the arguments and lean into the arguments. Don't just generalize. So if you don't like Trump, engage in the arguments. Don't just call him over and over and over and over and over and over again, and then sit and snuggle up next to him and take photos and laugh with him like that. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And so this is where we are with regards to the the space and place that we're in. And I've seen it, again, maybe it's just my vantage point. I've seen it more from the left against the right. When you repeatedly tell people these folks are not. When one of my closest friends sits down with me and confronts me and thinks I'm on the far right because I'm pro-life. Okay, think about that for a second. One of my closest friends that I've known for 15 years sat me down 2 years ago, post Roe v. Wade, and thought I was on the far right because I was pro-life. That's a crazy place to be. Like, the far right is the Nick Fuentes, like the real, like, covert racism, covert anti-Semitism. That's the far right, and that exists. Much of that is condemned and rebuked by most folks on the right, right? But that stuff exists, and so I think when you're factoring this stuff in, misinformation, spreading information that's not verified yet, it's not helpful. It's not helpful. At the same time, this didn't pass the smell test. When people start saying, "Oh, it was a MAGA Trump guy," hold on, because the last couple times this has happened. This has been a left-wing person going into right-wing Christian spaces and committing violence. Now, again, this happened in Minnesota with someone that I believe was like a pro-life terrorist, which that's wrong. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you're going to go up and in the name of not killing babies, kill senators. That's crazy. I don't know anyone in the pro-life space that would be like, yes and amen to that. That's dumb. Blowing up clinics, that's dumb. That doesn't win anybody over, right? And so that's the space that we're in, and I think we got to address it. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you liked it, then hit the like button. If you liked it a lot and have a thought to share, leave a comment. If you are listening to this on the podcast app, make sure to leave a review, and you could even leave a comment over there. And if you want to watch another video that is recommended just for you, hit this video over here. Let me know if they nailed it. Also, you can partner with us monthly, which helps us out a lot in our monthly community, get access to early drops and all that kind of good stuff over here. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.